WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We come to you Tuesdays, each and every Tuesday at 2:30. WCLN Radio, Star Communications, Channel 16. Tuesday, Thursday, also a replay at 7 p.m. also on Star Communications, Channel 16. Uploaded to YouTube and all the other social media platforms, Facebook, all those places that many of you tune in to regularly each and every day. We're talking to a good friend of Sampson County, a person that has, we grew up here. A person that probably if you're looking at us now, you're looking at his face going, I hadn't seen him in a while, but you've heard his name, Dr. Stewart Hobbs. Dr. Stewart Hobbs, Interim Superintendent yet again with the Sampson County Schools. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, JW.
I want to kind of, and the reason I'm doing this, I want to kind of give folks a little bit about, I'll call it your heritage, if you will, but you've been Interim Superintendent in Stokes County. This is about, what, second, third, or fourth time interim superintendent here in Clinton City or Sampson County Schools. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, you retired from the position of superintendent in Yadkin County, superintendent in Stokes County. He served as superintendent, of course, in Sampson County Schools. For me, and a lot of people in the northern part of Sampson County, principal of Hopton High School, which is not part of what's pointed out on your webpage, right. But I just wanted to mention that. I was telling the guys in the studio here before we started this morning, I don't know that I know anyone that has a better on-the-ground superintendent, educator, classroom to top-level position in public schools in North Carolina right now than Stewart Hobbs.
Well, I appreciate that, JW. I've been blessed and I'm humbled to have the opportunities, and I tell people all the time it's good to come home, and it's also good when I can come back, especially to Sampson County Schools or Clinton City Schools where I grew up, and make a difference. You know, I'm very passionate about public education, and it's an opportunity to me to come back and give something back to the community and to the schools and to our children, because they are our future, and it's, like I said, it's always great to come home.
I want to start the conversation today, and I want to basically springboard it from the vision statement of Sampson County Schools. And Sampson County Schools' vision statement is this: Sampson County Schools will empower all students to be successful in college and career. What has challenged that vision statement the most in the year of COVID?
Well, it's just how we educate our children, and I say this to people all the time: find something positive out of every negative. And the thing that I found with COVID that I think is a positive, school systems for so long have been talking about virtual learning and remote learning and one-to-one learning. But what COVID-19 has done is made us accelerate that process to the point where remote learning, virtual learning is here to stay. Even after this is over with, virtual learning is here to stay. And so what we've got to do is embrace that and train our teachers, make sure the community and parents and students know how virtual learning works, and how we still can educate children to the fullest extent using virtual learning. The other thing I want to say is with the colleges and universities, you know, and we've talked about this before, JW, is there was a time in education where everybody focused on everybody has to go to college. And what we're seeing now is college is not the solution for every student. And I'm grateful and amazed by the work that Dr. Strawlin and Sampson Community College are doing here in Sampson County, and the programs they're offering our folks, and the joint relationship that Sampson Community College has with Clinton City and Sampson County Schools to educate our children. I've been trying to find a brick mason. Mm-hmm. And, I'm willing to pay good money for a brick mason if I can find one. Mm-hmm. And so it's all that is we're going to have to look at doing things differently. And COVID-19 has pushed that upon us. Anything from education to businesses, there's going to be a new normal. What it exactly looked like, I'm not sure, but we're not going back to the old normal.
I think I agree that we are in that paradigm that paradigm shift. As we look at that and think about the idea of virtuality, I know one of the things we've done here is we've done a number of shows using Zoom and other platforms. It seems I don't adapt as well to it. I look like I'm asleep half the time, and the rest of the time I'm not sure if I can even see the cameras. But the point I'm making is we still have a large volume of change occurring in that platform. What we know now and what may be that we're doing a year from now, 2 years from now, is going to be dramatically, evolved. Is that a realistic
Yes.
thought?
Yes.
How does that fit the classroom and how we approach things? Because does it put more on the students and more on the parents to be responsible? How do you see that from the actual learning platform?
Well, it's putting more on students, it's putting more on teachers, it's putting more on parents. Now, what I see is that it's more of a challenge for our parents and our teachers than it is for our students. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed to walk in a kindergarten classroom and see these students on their iPads, mm-hmm. and they're just working away. They are working away. As educators, like I said earlier, it's forced us to accelerate the process of moving to remote learning, and one of the biggest things that we have to hurdle that we have to overcome is making sure that our teachers are educated in how to give virtual learning remotely. Our younger teachers do a better job with our veteran teachers, and that's just the dynamics of the age that we grew up in. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the parents. Parents are doing a better job with their students virtual to younger generations than the older generations. So, we've got to continue to educate, and like I said, to our teachers, and our students will adapt. Our students are the most adaptable I've seen. They will adapt. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're at a stage where remote learning is on the same equivalence page as face-to-face, because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We will get there, mm-hmm.
at
some point in time, and it's going to be like I said, it's going to be a new normal how virtual learning looks.
As we move to that capacity, one of the things that strikes me, and you've been in this position you're in now, from interim to superintendent, you've held this position. 18 schools in Sampson County. Of course, one of those is early college. You've got a volume of structures out there. You've got a large county that you've looked at and that you're looking at now. And several hundred, 800-900 students, employees, and then add the students to it. With all of the things that we've just talked about in the past few minutes, what kind of weight, what kind of burden is that on you and the school board to really make those policy position movements to look at the future and to steer this ship in the right direction? Because obviously you recognize something this big is not it's not a speedboat. Right. It's going to take a while to turn it. Let's talk about that a little bit.
And JW, I've been a superintendent for over 14 years, counting interims and before I retired. And I tell folks all the time, before COVID-19, there was not very few times that I ever took a recommendation to the board that I didn't feel with 100% of my heart that I was taking the best recommendation for students and teachers. With COVID-19, there's so many questions that we can't answer. Or we can answer them today, but tomorrow it changes. The answer changes. And so it's just like getting students back in the classroom. There's everybody, every employee that I have, every board member, myself, our main focus is we want students back in the classroom. Now, how does that look when you have to factor in safety and well-being of students, faculty, and staff? So it's like I tell board members every time I take a recommendation as far as we need to move back into the class, students back in the classroom is, I can't tell you with 100% certainty of my heart that it's the best decision, but it's like you're having to make decisions, and every day, every week, the numbers change, and you start thinking about, is this truly the best decision? Yes, we want kids back, but yes, I've always said safety, the health and safety and well-being of students, faculty, staff is number one. Yes, it's my job to make sure that students get an education, but it's also my job to make sure that students, teachers, and faculties, when they come to Sampson County Schools, are safe. So that's the challenge that we have as far as nobody knows exactly what the right answer is. It's like I tell people when I used to make a call for inclement weather, there was always people that got upset because I canceled school, or they got upset because I didn't cancel school. And it's like I said, I'm going to err on the side of safety, because what I know is that first and foremost, I can make up time, I can make up a day, I cannot make up a student's life.
We're going to take a break on that. When we come back, Dr. Hobbs, I'd like to talk a bit about the ABCs of the matter. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs, Interim Superintendent at the moment here in Sampson County. We're talking about impacts of school and students right here in this area. Be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is J.W. Simmons. The name of the show is We Should Know. I want to remind you, you can continue to reach us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. The show airs on Tuesday at 2:30. It's simulcast on WCLN Radio, Star Communications Channel 16. It also airs again Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. for your convenience. And after that, it's uploaded to YouTube, Facebook, social media platforms as well. We like to hear from you about shows we've had, about commentary that our guests have had, about suggestions of upcoming shows. Very important to us. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs, Sampson County Schools, Interim. Dr. Hobbs, thank you for being with us. I want to kind of back up a little bit, and we talked a bit about your background. We've talked a bit about where we're going with technology. It seems only just a few weeks ago, actually it's been a few months, we heard this idea of ABC plan, A plan, B plan, C plan meant something. We saw an involvement of the Department of Health and Human Services. Mandy Cohen and her operation was all of a sudden now in everybody's kitchen, in everybody's living room. And the name become, I guess, prevalent with us, along with Dr. Fauci on the federal level. With the ABC plans in the public schools, right now, let us know where we are and what is these plans. Is it okay to mix them? Is it okay to do what you referred to earlier as a hybrid plan? And when might we look at something given when we air today, because clearly, as you pointed out, as we aired today, we could be talking about one thing a week from now. The numbers may change and we may be to a C plan or back to an A plan.
Right. And you're exactly right, JW. Back in the summer, The state came out with Plan A, which is everyone back into school full force. B plan, which is 50% of your students back in at one time. And then a C plan was all virtual. Originally, Sampson County Schools had looked at moving into Plan B, excuse me. And once we looked at the numbers back in July and August, we decided to start our schools on Plan C, full remote for K-12. In September, we did move elementary into a staggered approach into Plan B, which 50% of students in the buildings. It was an AABB day. So one group would come on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday was deep cleaning, still doing remote learning, and Thursday, Friday, the other two sets of students would be in the building at that time, still doing remote learning on days they're not in the building. On October the 15th, we started with middle school, and then middle schools started coming 2 days a week, AABB. And currently our high schools, they're still on a Plan C except for ninth graders. Ninth graders come on Tuesdays and Thursdays for instruction. We also have a time designated for 10, 11, 12th graders to come on Wednesday. So yes, we've been doing a hybrid model. We don't have all of our high schools back. We had a long conversation yesterday about hopefully in January, beginning second semester, January 4th, that we will be bringing our high schools back on an AABB schedule. And school systems all over the state are doing, there's not, like I said earlier, it's not a right or wrong way. It's whatever you need to accommodate your students in the system where you live and work. We have one high school that, because of their numbers and very few students that have signed up for remote learning, they can't do an AABB schedule and social distance. It's the numbers they don't have the space and the numbers to allow that. So we're having to look at a ABCD schedule for them, where students come 1 day a week and have 4 days of remote. So there's all different ways to look at it. Right now, the governor, you can do kindergarten through 5th grade. You can bring them back on Plan A. Our board and our principals have not moved to that direction, simply because we cannot social distance like we want to, especially with the numbers increasing. On the buses, we would have very little social distancing if we brought all kindergarten through 5th graders back, because we could not sit one child to a seat, which would be very problematic. What we're hoping, I am presenting to the board Monday night, a plan to get high school students back starting January 4th, as I said. And we're also establishing metrics that we're going to look at between now and January the 4th, when school starts back second semester, that if we can get under those numbers that we're going to designate, that we're looking hopeful that we can bring kindergarten back through 5th grade on an A schedule.
When we're talking about all these things, and we've talked a bit about, of course, the ABC thing, and you just tossed another one on there, possibly a D, which is a mix of all of them. Let's talk a bit about the psychology of all this, not only with the students, but the psychological impacts for parents, for grandparents, for teachers. Is that something that concerns you? Is there any I guess adjustments that we're making to assist educators through this process? This is a tremendous, and of course I'm one of those people. When my children were coming along, both Betty and I were working, and it was everything we could get them to the babysitter. And there's a tremendous number of people that's facing that. What are the psychological impacts, and what are we doing, or are we adjusting for anything like that?
Well, the social emotional learning and the social emotional aspect for our students is first and foremost. because these students are not getting that socialization that they're used to in their schools. So our teachers, our staff, our central office staff, our social emotional learning coordinator, we're focusing on the little things that we can do with our students as far as to give them that social and emotional framework that they need, that they miss so much when they're not in that building being able to socialize with their friends. And that, even with students back in the building on a plan B, that's one of the hardest things to do because we're having to social distance. So that socialization is not there. We're trying to do some stuff remotely and chat rooms and stuff like that, especially with our high school students, as far as addressing those needs. It's a challenge because we're learning. We're not used to having to offer that. We offer it in school when everybody's there, but we're having to change the way we think. For parents and teachers, Plan B is the most problematic plan there is. You know, our teachers would much rather be on a Plan A or a Plan C. Because Plan B, we're teachers that are teaching face-to-face a cohort on Monday and Tuesday, but they're still teaching all the other students that are coming on Thursday and Friday. They're still teaching them, and then we still have kids that are doing full remote. So they're teaching 3 different platforms to students. You know, I had somebody say, well, teachers don't do anything. No, teachers are working harder than they ever have. And they will tell you right now, if we can get back to Plan A safely, they're all in favor of it. But so that's a challenge. And then we know the challenge that parents have with not only finding childcare, with babysitting, and also with instruction. This past spring, when this all hit, we were down at our place at the coast and had our 2 grandchildren with us. And I got one grandson, he was in the 8th grade last year, and he wanted me to teach him, be his teacher that day and help him. And while he was on remote learning. Well, I lasted about 1 day because I could not teach 8th grade math. I couldn't teach 8th grade math the way we teach 8th grade math. So we understand it. You know, as educators, we understand it, and we feel everybody's pain, and we just got to continue to work together and solve the problems.
I think you probably just put a lot of people at ease when you just said that the superintendent, Dr. Stewart Hobbs, had trouble teaching 8th grade math. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of us out there that kind of look at it and look at what they're doing, and no matter what your academic level is, if you don't understand that platform and that lesson plan and structure, you're not going to get it. So there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So as we look at these kinds of things and think about where we are with this behavioral aspect of the child and this learning aspect, in a minute or so, you just kind of mention what you think parents need to know. What can they do to help support this structure that seems to have no legs on it?
I think the biggest thing is just to support your child and talk to your child and see what their needs are. You know, children listen. Children, they pay attention to what adults model for them. And when they're hearing that how bad it is and it's all doom and gloom, you know, they pick up on that. So the thing is to support your child and give them encouragement and offer advice and just have conversation with them. Set up opportunities for them to FaceTime with family and friends and just converse.
We're going to take another break, and when we come back, I might want to pick up on that because I think it's important that you talk to parents a little bit and let them know what they can do. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us. We're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs. We're talking about issues related to everything from COVID. This second half, we're going to get into a bit of rural schools and some of the problematic issues that are faced with rural schools as well. Call a friend, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. Dr.
You come
Stewart
out to
Hobbs.
replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. We Should Know is on there. We're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs, Interim Superintendent, Sampson County Schools. Dr. Hobbs, thank you for being with us. It seems like it was only just a few weeks ago that Dr. Eric Bracey left us, and I saw that, and again, I'm hoping he's doing well in Johnston County. My part and my comment to him, probably a great decision for his career, and I'm sure he's doing well there. But in that movement, there was so many things going on in Sampson County Schools. Looking for a new superintendent. Again, we're blessed that you decided to come back. You understand the structure here. We were talking about, as we went to break, part of that structure, that infrastructure of schools is not just teachers, it's not just the staff, it's not psychologists, but it is parents at the root of that. And you were speaking to that issue, and I want to give you a few minutes here to kind of continue that conversation before we move to something else. The critical aspect of that for me is that parents or grandparents, in my case, is that to understand there's not but so much that we can expect of ourselves. Where do we turn to if we reach that point? We're just not getting this, and I'm concerned about whether it's a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, or a 17-year-old. Where do we turn to? Is there a person or place in the public school system?
Yes. Yeah, and the answer, JW, is yes. All of our schools, we are asking that parents continue to work with us, continue to support their children in their learning, but also do not be afraid to pick up the phone and call the schools. All of our teachers will schedule individual times that you can bring your child into schools, and we will work one-on-one with those child, especially on Wednesdays, which is our true remote learning day. But our teachers have the same emphasis that parents do. They want what's best for their children, and they're willing to go above and beyond to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students. So I tell parents all the time, don't be afraid to call and ask for help. It's just like I said the other day, I can't teach 8th grade math. You know, I have a doctorate degree, been superintendent. I cannot teach math the way we teach math today. That's not how it was taught to me. And so I struggle with that, and I know parents struggle with that, and grandparents struggle with that. Our teachers know how to teach it. And so ask for help. Most of our teachers have set up times where parents can Zoom in, contact them virtual, and ask for help. Students can contact their parents virtually and ask for help during the day. So don't be afraid, and encourage your child, if they don't know something, to Zoom in, talk to the teacher, schedule a time. We're all in this together. And teachers working hard, students are working hard, parents are working hard, and our goal is that we're going to get through this, and we're going to come out better than we are. Public education is going to be better than it was because we have learned from our mistakes, but also we've improved the way we educate our children.
I want to thank you for those encouraging words, and that leads me to what I'd like to get into with maybe this second section of the show is maybe not necessarily move away from the COVID issue, because it's, as you said, it's going to be with us, looks like, for a while here, but move into some of those issues that we were talking about that is still engaged, and COVID has been layered over the top of it. And that is, I think, kind of brought us, for me, in Public Schools NC statement, in which some research revealed that North Carolina houses 568,000 rural students. It's the second highest rural population in the United States after Texas for rural school students. Stewart, we faced a challenge with teacher pay. we're still facing a challenge with facility issues. We're facing a challenge overall with what we see as abundance of supplies. When I talk to folks in the legislature and other places, the first thing they put out to me is that the overwhelming majority of the budget, 50+%, is in education. Where are we at, and are we making any headway in these areas that have continued to be ongoing, that if it were not for COVID, we would be devoted the whole show to that this morning? Where are we at now? I mean, you've taught literally pretty much all over the state of North Carolina. You've been superintendent, leadership position all over the state. This rule issue and zip code continues to be part of the conversation.
And I think the biggest thing, one thing that we don't talk about is the change in demographics, and especially in our rural counties. And our demographics have in the last 25 years have changed dramatically, and it becomes a question of equity. Not only equity amongst rural and urban school districts, but equity from house to house, from community to community. You know, when COVID hit and we started talking about technology and how it accelerated us to get to one-to-one initiative where every student will have their own device. You know, one of the issues that we didn't think about was connectivity. Or we did think about it, but we bought these devices called Kajits, which were supposed to bring connectivity to every home, but we have families that live in rural districts where even with a device such as a Kajit, they can't connect to the internet. They have no connection to the internet because service doesn't get to them. So that's been a challenge. We have formed an equity committee at Sampson County Schools to make sure that, you know, we're saying that every child is getting this type of education, but we want to put some meat behind the bone. We want to show people and address the needs as far as equity to make sure that our Hispanic kids, our African American kids, our Native American kids, our Caucasian are all getting the same education, and that we're sitting there and we're not neglecting some of these kids' needs and all. You know, I tell people all the time, you don't know what some of these children go home to. We just assume that they go home to the support and the structure that I'm used to, and they don't see that. So that is a huge issue that we've got to continue to face. Budget is going to be an issue. Now, one thing that COVID-19 has done, it helped us, it provided money not only for PPE and some pay for folks when we had to shut down, but also, you know, like I said, with technology, by Christmas time, every student in Sampson County Schools will have their own device that our device that we give them that they use, every student in Sampson County Schools, and that's saying a lot when you're talking about 8,600 students in our school system will have their own device. Teacher pay, principals pay, you know, people are not going into education, and we need strong people in education. We need strong leaders in education. Right now, the school board is trying to find a permanent superintendent, and we need strong leaders. And I was talking to the executive director for the North Carolina School Superintendents Association, and when I started back in July, there was 11 interim superintendents in the state out of 115. Last week, there were still 11 interim superintendents, and in just the last 2 days, they have had 2 more superintendents to resign. So that's interesting. There's 115 school superintendents in the state of North Carolina, and over 85 of them have 3 years or less in education. So, yeah.
Stewart, you know, and I just listening to your commentary, it just seems to me that prior to COVID, that it just seemed that we were in almost an unsolvable situation with the needs of schools. And to your point, in attempting to find somebody to fill these superintendent seats, now we put that into the mix along with the fact that all of these things that are just almost uncompromisable as it relates to teachers, as it relates to facilities, all of these kinds of things. It's no doubt that nobody don't want to kind of step in. It's like that you're losing the war, so okay, step up and be the general. Mm-hmm. You know, who wants to do that?
Well, I said all along that when everything is going good, everybody wants your job because they can do it. But you want to find true leaders step up when everything is not going good. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and Sampson County Schools will find a very good leader to come in here and fill this role as superintendent. They will, because the people that, it might not be as many people applying for jobs, but they are of high quality because they know what they're getting into, and they want to face that challenge of moving up. You know, we're having principals that are leaving. You know, school systems are having their superintendents. We're having teachers. You know, we haven't even talked about a number of teachers that have taken early retirement because of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just because it was, I'm tired of teaching, it was because of COVID-19 and the health became a health issue or risk that they didn't feel comfortable still staying in the building.
And maybe part of that picture is that some of those teachers may come back given, you know, what the solution is for this. Apparently there's two possibilities out there now. There are mm-hmm. some folks that are projecting that at the end of the year that we will start seeing vaccinations. Do you think those teachers will come back, or once they've exited, it's kind of over with?
I think they had their years in to retire, and I think it's time that they felt a need to go ahead and retire.
We're going to take another break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Again, we're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs. We're talking about critical issues. I often refer to it as critical infrastructure issues when we're talking about education. We encourage you to come back for this last segment as we continue this conversation and look at other issues facing the public school system. We'll be
to get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're coming up on the last segment, talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs, Interim Superintendent, Sampson County Schools. Stewart, we talked a bit at the beginning of the show about your background and the varied places you've been superintendent, interim in throughout the state. One of the things that is occurring is that we've kind of dusted off the shelf and talked about COVID. We've talked a bit about the school system. I want to kind of get into the meat of a little bit of education and expectation of education this last segment, and talk about some of the things that maybe if we'd have been talking, it was a year ago or the last time, we'd still be talking about this. But one of the things that's happening is that it seems that the facility issue, i.e. school buildings, it seems that funding of students, the funding that you guys get per student, that there's a huge inequity across the state. In today's world and where we are now, and again, I think you were right on point in saying up front, we may talk about this 2 weeks from now and the numbers, we might be talking about something else. But in reality, there is a need for structural buildings in Sampson County. Your old high school that you were principal at Hobbs, one of the oldest high schools in the county, in tremendous need. We look at that, and then we look at the funding formula throughout the state. Help us understand how we get funded, the expectation of a building being local funds versus state funds. I've had legislators say we need to look at it from a state level and pass a state bond and give certain amount of money to counties with a state bond. Tell us what your sense is on that, because that's a big chunk. We could do a whole show on that. I realize that.
Well, you're exactly right. And what a lot of people don't realize is the state of North Carolina, unless there's a statewide bond referendum, they do not fund facilities. So all school construction money, unless there's a state bond, has to come through the county commissioners. And how county commissioners have to get their money is what nobody wants, is to raise taxes. And so, you know, in 2000s, early 2000s, when the county commissioners appropriated money through COPS to build Clinton High School, Union High School, Midway High School, and a new Charles E. Perry or Roseboro Elementary School, new building at the community college. We're greatly indebted to the county commissioners for having the vision and the courage to take that step. But what you saw was tax rates increase. And so you have to, you know, to be prudent with your finances. County commissioners got to make sure they can't continue to impose tax increases. What needs to happen right now is a statewide bond referendum. There was some talk about a state bond referendum year before last, and then this year with the elections coming up, that was put on hold. That is, if you talk to educational folks, that is their number one priority is facilities, and hoping to get a statewide bond referendum put back on the ballot in 2022. We could really get some stuff done. The last time state bond referendum passed was 1996, I think it was, and that's where you can see schools like Salemburg, Clement, Plainview, Hopton Middle, some of these other ones that were built using that state bond referendum. And you're exactly right. Hopton High School is in great need. Now there is some people say, what about the lottery? Lottery money comes to the commissioners and it's used for school construction, but it's mainly used for paying off debt on schools. So if a county commissioner didn't use that, your tax rate would be even higher than it is now. There is a $15 million needs-based grant that you can apply for every year through the lottery. That's out there. We would qualify, Sampson County Schools would qualify for $15 million. The issue is we can't build a new Hopton High School or any other high school for $15 million. We have to, the county commissioners would have to match that. And so again, what happens is that old thing, don't raise the taxes. But I will say this, yes, we have some, you know, a couple schools that are in need, but overall, we have outstanding schools buildings in Sampson County and in Clinton City. We're very fortunate and very appreciative that our buildings are where we are. Do we still have needs? Yes, we're going to continue to have needs. And we also got to think about the future of like we've been talking about with virtual learning, is how students learn. I just presented a plan. We got 3 schools that were built, and they got these collaborative work areas for students to go out there and do little small groups and get online. But when they were built, there was a big furniture piece that was put out there where you hooked up stationary computers. Well, we need to take those out and make it a student-centered, true collaborative area. So I gave the board some ideas, and we're looking at doing some of that in our schools. So the other thing I would look at is taking our existing school buildings and how can we renovate them, modify them to meet the needs of our students now and how education is going to look going forward.
Do you see the virtual piece of what we talked about earlier in the show today impacting the dynamic and need for the structural part of education? And I bring that question because there are those, as you know, that would say there's not a direct correlation with how nice your high school is or how new it is versus what the outcome of the educated student is. quite. There's a few people that would argue that there's little or no. So back to what we're talking about with virtuality. If virtuality reaches that point and that dynamic, will we need less structure, or is the structure still going to be a viable part?
We're going to still need the structure, and I'm also will argue with folks that says there's not a direct correlation between the physical structure, physical building, and instruction learning, because I also do some consulting for some architectural firms, and research shows that little things just as sunlight make a huge difference in how students perform. But no, it's going to change, and virtual learning is going to change, and there's going to be more need for students that instead of sitting in a classroom with four walls are going to be in these collaborative work areas on their laptops and on their iPads and doing work and communicating with a teacher that might be in another location. But I also say this, virtual learning is here to stay. And we're going to still, even when COVID-19 is over, we're going to still have parents and students that are going to opt to continue virtual learning. We're looking at setting up our own virtual academy for years to come, is where students can continue to take classes online. I don't know how big the numbers will be. It'll fluctuate. But you're seeing that with the colleges right now. You know, my nephew's working on his master's degree, and he can get a master's degree in 2.5 years and never set foot on Appalachian State.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's becoming more and more an issue. One of the things also I think that has been discussed, and I know talking with Stephen Barrington, who is our economic developer here, is this idea of new school buildings, or should I say modern school facilities, is an automatic drawer. It helps develop and grow communities, and that's a critical part. Is that what you're seeing throughout the state as well?
Yes. One of the first things that people do, you talk to businesses and industry, and when people look at relocating, one of the first things they want to know is about the school systems and about the schools and what they can offer. And yes, they're not going to move to a community that sit there and their child is going to walk into a 1940, 1950 school building that is educational. The way our students learn now are not educationally sound. They're not going to do it when they can go, to the next county which has that, and you're going to see that. One of the things I did not mention when we go back to talking about virtual learning and how things are going to change that affects our buildings and education is one of the things that, like I said, we're going to have kids that will continue on virtual learning. Other thing we're going to have is snow days are going away. Because the easy thing to do, last Friday we had to, because of the flooding and the bridges out in Sampson County, we had to change over to a full remote day. So only thing I did was send out a message, hey, today's a full remote learning day. So if you were scheduled to come to school on last Friday, you didn't come. You went online and did full remote. And that's what we're going to see with snow days and hurricane days. Instead of, hey, everybody, it's snow day, stay at home, you're going to say it's a remote learning day. And so we'll just pick up, we're doing remote learning anyway, so you just log on to your laptop, your iPad, and teacher will be there ready to teach you.
Well, I think some of the things we talked about today, and we're kind of coming to a close here, and I want to give you a few seconds to just last comments, but there seems to be exciting times ahead. So I want to give you about 15, 20 seconds here to close, and again, we could probably do a semester with Dr. Stewart Hobbs, but go ahead and give us a closing
JW, I appreciate you having me. It's always good when I come home to have this opportunity, and I especially want to thank the Sampson County Board of Education for allowing me the opportunity to come in here and fill this need. And it's like I tell them, I'm here to help you, make the transition as easy as possible, but thank you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you, and as you noticed, you saw on your phone when you got here, I give you a thumbs up, so look forward to talking to you again. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us today. We're talking about education. We're talking with Dr. Stewart Hobbs. I hope that you, if you have any questions for him, feel free to call to Sampson County Schools and talk to some of his staff or talk to Stewart himself. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing you again next week, and as always, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.